Hi everyone, today I will explain you how to solve literal equations or basically how to isolate formulas. To isolate formulas you have to remember the inverse operation. Positive pass to negative, negative pass to positive, negative pass to positive, and you have to follow the process for the inverse operation. And we're going to use x to the second power. We are going to use the square root to eliminate this power. So for example, I have three formulas and we are going to isolate for the specific letter. For example, by r, by h, and by the r, or by the radius, by the height, and by the radius. In this case, we have area, we have the area, it's equal pi times r to the second. This pi is multiplying, and remember our objective is to isolate the radius to the second power. So if this is multiplying, we are going to move to divide. So we are going to pass to divide, and then we are going to have only r to the second power. But we don't finish with this procedure. We need to cancel this power and we are going to use the square root. Remember, the inverse of square is square root. So this one we are going to use the square root, and we're going to put the square root in both sides. So in this case we are going to use r to the second. I'm going to write in the interior, and then I'm going to write the other r to the second power here is going to be a square root r to the second power, and then this number, if we put a square root here, we need to write square root here. So we are going to write the square root in the other number. So square root in this expression is going to be a over pi. Okay, a over pi, and we are going to erase this part. Okay, so now we already have this one, and remember the inverse of the square is the square root, so we are going to cancel this one like this, and we're going to have our final expression, and our final expression is going to be square root the area over pi equal to r over pi equal to the radius. And we already isolate this formula for the radius. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this exercise. Remember, we need to isolate for the radius. So here we have pi and r to the second, so these two numbers are multiplying, so the pi we are going to pass to divide, and then to cancel to the power of 2 we are going to use the square root, and we apply in both sides, because remember the inverse of square is the square root. And then we are going to cancel this one, and we're going to have a over pi equals to r. Remember this r, it's outside equals to r, like that. Now in this one we need to isolate for h. So basically we need to follow the same procedure, but first you need to identify that pi and r to the second are multiplying with h. If these two are multiplying, we need to pass to divide to the other side. So we are going to do it volume over these two letters, or these two variables, the number pi and the variable r, or let's say the radius, are multiplying. So we're going to write a pi and r to the second. And this one we are going to write equals to h. As you can see, h is already isolated because 8 is alone. Now with this one, in the last one, we have c equal to pi r, and we need to isolate for the radius. Okay, so how are we going to do this one? We're going to follow the same procedure. Circumference equal, as you can see, 2 and pi are multiplying with the r, so these 2 pi we can pass to divide because are multiplying, so we're going to have just the radius. So the radius, you can calculate the circumference over 2 pi, and we already isolate this formula. Remember, the important is if it's multiplying, pass to divide. If it's divide, pass to multiply. In this one we have, I'm going to do it first, this one, the number 5, and then I'm going to explain you the number 4. For example, in the number 5 we have this famous formula. So we need to isolate. In this case, I'm going to isolate for c. Okay, so we have e over m. Why over m? We use over m because it's multiplying in the other side, so we need to pass to divide. So I'm gonna move it this way. This is multiplying with c squared, so we are going to pass to divides, and then we are going to have equal c to the power of 2. Now remember, if you want to eliminate this power, you need to eliminate it, so we are going to use, or we are going to apply a square root in both sides. So here we are going to write the square root. So square root, and in the interior we are going to write e over m, and we are going to erase this part. Equal square root, because if we apply square root in one side, we need to apply it in the other side. C to the second power. It's going to be c to the power of 2. And we erase this one because we don't need it. Okay. C to the second power. Now remember, if you follow the process, you have to cancel the square root. So how are you going to do this one? We cancel this one, and we're going to have this expression. At the end, our formula is going to be isolated like E over m, or energy over mass, equals C equals to C. And we already isolated this formula. Now, in this case, we need to isolate for B1. Pay special attention in this type of exercise, because our first procedure in this one, we need to try to write this expression as a linear expression without fraction in this way. So as you can see, 2, it's dividing, so we are going to try to pass to multiply. So it's going to be this is dividing, we are going to move, or to do the transposition to multiply, equal, and we are going to write this expression in the numerator. So it's going to be parentheses, base 1, this is base 1, and then plus base 2, plus base 2, and we are to close the parentheses, multiply by the height. This is our first step. Now in the second step, you're gonna try to isolate for B1. As you can see, h is multiplying, right? So we are going to move to divide. So we are going to do this one, 2 area over h, or over the height. In this case, I'm gonna erase this one. Twice the area over the height, because this is multiplying here, we are going to pass to divide. Equal B1 plus B2, or base 1 plus base 2, plus base 2. And then you're gonna try to isolate for B1. So when we have it this one, we are going to move the B2 to the other side. If this is adding, we are going to move to subtracting. So it's going to be the area over the height, and remember this is twice the area over the height, and we have positive B2, so we are going to move to negative B2, or say the base 2. Remember, this formula is for trapezoid, and the trapezoid has two bases, the base 1 and the base 2, so it's going to be base 1. And we already finished with this exercise. So remember, if you want to cancel the square, you're going to use a square root. If you have a number that are multiplying, we are going to pass to dividing. And if we have a number that is adding, we are going to pass to subtracting. But first, you're going to follow this process. First, you have to have your formula in this way, as a linear, like this, because it's better. So every time that you have a fraction or a number that is in the denominator, you're going to pass to multiply. And with this, you can do it, and you can understand better the formula. And in this one, for example, we have the mass, so the mass we pass it to divided, and then we put it square root because we need to cancel this specific, this square. Okay, so these are some geometry formulas and some physics formula that you can use. Basically, you use literal formulas to solve problems in different branches of math.